Good morning. This is Patricia from Naples coming to you to talk a little bit about post-traumatic stress disorder today. Last week we talked about panic attacks, and the week before that was OCD and generalized anxiety. So we are now heading into number 4 for post-traumatic stress. What is that? Well, that is when an individual has had a trauma. They've had an event or a number of events that have created intense fear, and they have felt very, very threatened. So, also, along with it, the mind and the body remember this trauma, and PTSD is a reaction to those memories. Okay, so not only did I see a lot of it with our veterans, because I had the opportunity to work for about 25 years with veterans in San Diego, both in the VA Medical Center, in the hospital, as well as at Camp Pendleton. So a lot of our young boys were coming back during that time from Afghanistan and Iraq. And certainly they had 4 years or 8 years of chronic trauma during the war. And they needed our help. So I got to see it up close. And now also I want to remind you that other folks also suffer. Those that have experienced childhood trauma, those that have experienced car accidents, that have had prolonged illnesses, those that have had sexual abuse, and at times, occasionally, even some of our policemen and law enforcement, as well as our firemen, especially if they were involved in a lot of trauma. For example, rushing into those buildings during 9/11. Okay, so now you have an understanding of what PTSD looks like. What are some of the symptoms? Well, a lot of our folks experienced insomnia. They had nightmares. They woke up in deep sweats because the memories in their subconscious were flooding their mind, and for them, they were right back there again in the heart of the trauma. So they're very tired. They're usually very hypervigilant. They were always in need of checking out their environment. A lot of our vets had to sit by the door, or they had to sit, like if they went to the movies, they always had to sit in the last row so they could see everyone, and they could be aware of who's there and who's nearby the environment that they were in. Okay, so we also know that there's a lot of worry. They're very anxious. Sometimes they're very angry. Sometimes that anger spills out to those that they love, and they just don't understand it, and they don't know where it comes from. Now, we know that PTSD is usually most acute during the initial early stage, the rescue stage of when that trauma just happened. And then there is a period where it does lessen for a while. We know that too. We know that over time, for the most part, 44% of people that have suffered PTSD recover, which is the good news. But we've also seen recently some spikes in PTSD as people have aged and gotten older, and particularly now during this pandemic when we've had such uncertainty and there's a lot of fear in the world about what's going to happen next. So those are triggers that somehow have influenced a lot of our anxiety people, and particularly PTSD folks. All right, so how do we help them? Well, first of all, of course, we send them to their healthcare provider, their psychiatrist, or their general practitioner. Help them to explain the symptoms. Medication is always a possibility, although not always needed or used. Other coping skills. I had the opportunity to work at vet centers in San Diego, and highly recommend that if you're a veteran, you stop in and see what's available in terms of group support and one-on-one counseling. In counseling and in therapy, we use usually 2 techniques. One is cognitive behavioral therapy, in which we kind of go through the thoughts that are being brought up and the behaviors that are attached to those thoughts and those feelings and those memories, and slowly begin to hopefully resolve them. And there's also EMDR, which is another approach that therapists use. And that is basically going back and into the reoccurrence of the trauma and allowing the body to kind of release it through different techniques. So counseling is always helpful in my opinion, and PTSD can last for a very long time. So we need to practice all of our coping skills. So I'm also aware that there are a lot of great service organizations that I have also been a part of, and one here in Naples is called PAWS, P-A-W-S, in which over 9 months to a year, individuals train very specialized dogs, mostly golden retrievers, and they match them up with a veteran that is suffering from PTSD. Now, there are a lot of other organizations around the country, and I want to name a few, so bear with me. 4 Paws for Patriots is one, Canine Angels, Companions for Heroes, Freedom Dogs, and those that are outside of being a veteran, there is Freedom Canine and Teal Paws. A Purdue study came out a few years ago and showed that the majority of individuals that had a service dog did so much better, almost a full recovery over time. So highly recommend you get in touch with some of these organizations and see if you can't begin that application process for yourself. So we've talked about doctors and seeing your physician and medications and group therapy, individual therapy, service dogs, relaxation techniques, long walks, hitting the gym, and just being aware that all of this takes time. It takes a definite practice. Meditation and prayer is always useful, and I hope that this has been somewhat helpful. If you know anyone that is suffering from PTSD, please have them check in with me. If you have questions or comments, please leave them below. I'll see you next Thursday. Have a great week, everybody, and take good care. Bye.